We have with us today two magnetic speakers, Mr. Anil Seeterram and Ms. Lorraine O'Connor. First, Ms. Lorraine O'Connor, from her years of experience, I am sure we are all excited to gain her insights. Next, Mr. Anil Seeterram, who is experienced in raising debt and equity financing for small and large enterprises. Thank you both, Mr. Anil and Ms. Lorraine, for accepting the opportunity to share your expertise in helping Caribbean creators determine their worth.
So the little agenda today, the little roadmap for this morning. First of all, I always believe that, you have to, before we embark on a journey, you have to know your destination. So what does success actually look like? I think that's something we have to get kind of clear in our head. Then we kind of make an assessment of the situation as it currently stands. We talk a bit about who provides financing to the sector. And I'll talk about something called demonstration of value and how would you demonstrate the value you as a creative person have. And then last, I'll talk about some solutions to some of the problems we go through here. Now, before I actually go into the presentation, just to let you all know, I mean, it is difficult for presenters in this type of forum to really engage properly. I'm much more comfortable talking in a room full of people, so I can see people's face, I can see their reaction, and I can craft my message for them. So this is a challenge, but it would be great if you guys can use the chat box, ask questions, because I'm much better responding on the fly. So please do that. Put on your cameras if you can, if you have the bandwidth and the ability and the good hair this morning. Put on your camera so I can see faces. Whether you're smiling or frowning, it doesn't matter. It's just much more engaging for us, and hopefully we can have a nice talk this morning. Okay. Oh, good. I'm seeing some people starting already, so great. So first off, the goal. So the first thing you have to figure out is, what does a successful creative sector even look like? So we have to understand where we're going to go. And I'm submitting this, that a successful creative sector attracts investors to it. And what does that really mean practically? It means that creative people don't have to go looking for funding. Investors actually come and seek you out. I mean, that would be fantastic. That's an indication of a very successful sector. And another attribute, or key attribute, I think, is a creative sector that is focused on returns to both investors and the creatives, the people who create the industry and people who invest in the industry. That is a successful sector. And any sector like that, doesn't matter if it's creative, it doesn't matter if it's IT, it doesn't matter if it is oil and gas. Any sector with these attributes will become self-sustaining and self-perpetuating. What does that mean? It grows. It means that young people begin to hear that this sector is the place to be, and they are attracted to it. So right now, the sector where people are telling their kids to go into and so on, if they have the wherewithal, is go into IT, go into gaming, go into sectors that people see as the future. And the question we have to ask ourselves, as it stands now, do people see the creative sector as the place to encourage their children and their family members and people you care about for a future? And if not, why not? And I think that's where we want to talk to today. So what's the situation right now in this sector? Most people, the creatives, I'm sure on the call, and those who have met, they basically need funding, and the funding have various requirements. You need for equipment, technical stuff, actual materials, services, or even for themselves. And then the question is, who can I go to provide the funding for it? And then, of course, like everything else in life, there's some challenges. And what are the challenges do you guys experience? And I mean, again, feel free to put on the chat anything that that you've seen that I've missed out, or even throw it up right now. one of the big challenges is the lack of an available funding network. So what does that mean, funding network? Are there people you can easily call or call upon who instantly recognize the need for your funding? Lack of collateral. A lot of the lenders right now say, great idea, great initiative. Do you have collateral? Do you have land? Do you have hard assets as a condition for a loan? And many people do not. A lot of challenges, there's a lack of formal business plans. A lot of people want to see something substantial. They want to see projections. They want to see firm contracts. And right now, people in the sector don't actually have anything formal and written and documented. And one of the challenges is continuous rejection, of course. That we go to different avenues for funding and we get consistently rejected. And after rejection, you kind of go, well, maybe something is wrong with me. I mean, one of the questions you always have to ask yourself is, I'm rejected, why? Never be afraid to say, no problem, I can't get the financing now. Why can't I get it? What is the criteria I have to achieve to get it? And then, of course, there's also the administrative burden. In particular in public sector and multilateral funds, the requirement for documentation is quite voluminous, and the administration required may be too much for one person to handle. So what I've done, I mean, so apologies in advance. I mean, I'm a consultant by nature, try to categorize and bucket for easy thinking. It's sort of like a kind of a thought experiment. And in my experience so far, I've kind of broadly categorized all the creatives into some categories. And I mean, you have to kind of think of it this way. This is how investors may see the sector. So this is more about an outsider's view of how they would look at any sector. They would break it down. And so the first category I call aspirational creatives. And what is that? And those are people who are interested in industry. They think they want to become a dancer. They want to become an artist. And they are maybe embarking upon some learning. They're going to classes, they're going to some school. But the key part is they haven't really done it for a living yet. So that's why they're aspirational. The second one I call established creatives. And who are this category? They're actually in the market. They are actually working. They've hit the market now, but for whatever reason, they're not yet financially strong. They can't continuously count upon their creative pursuits to earn them a living on a consistent basis. So they may have second or third jobs. Then the last sector, of course, the last category is successful creatives. And these are people who are also market proven and they are very financially strong. I mean, my guess is that today we're probably the first two categories. I stand to be corrected. I'm seeing a couple people there I know who I would consider to be successful in the chat. So I'm happy we're here. So we have a good representation of all three categories here today. So now we've spoken about how the industry could be looked at. Where does this capital come from? And where are the sources of capital? So if you're an aspirational creative, the kind of capital that would be attracted to you, or is a natural fit, as you would say, would be friends and family, grants, and scholarships. For established creatives, it would be grants, private investors, and specialized funds. And for successful creatives, the capital sources would be sponsorships, private investors, specialized funds, and even commercial banks. I'll pause here for a second because if anybody has any questions about what any of these terms mean, again, ask me in the chat and I can expand. But one that is sort of unique to our area now is what I would call specialized funds. And specialized funds are basically money set aside by private or public sectors And later on, we will speak to Lorraine O'Connor. She will speak, and that's a good example of a specialized fund where they have a private sector company set aside money for the creative sector. They're going to invest in the creative sector. And they have this, in a variety of other sectors as well. But we're talking about a specialized fund for the creative sector. Now, let's take this little chart slowly here, because it's very important to understand. What do the people who provide capital want? So on the left-hand side, you will see all the people we mentioned over here, right? These are the providers of capital. And thanks. So what do the financiers want? Friends and family, what do they want out of this? And why do they want to provide capital? And really, friends and family, they do it because they want to show support, and they have feelings of obligation because it's familial obligation, and they have pride. The other elements, government, state agencies, and multilateral organizations, what are their goals and objectives? And really, their goals and objectives are, they really have broad economic, socio-economic, or political objectives for giving capital to certain sectors and areas. And then the last, the private, and some private investors also have that. You will see a check mark there. Some private investors want to give back, as they say. They want to give back to their culture, to their heritage, to things that they wanted to do when maybe they were younger. Now they have the capital and they want to give back. So sometimes they do have socioeconomic, or that's what philanthropy is also. But for the large part, private sector sources want, let me shift on this side here, return on investment. They all check the boxes there. So private investors, specialized funds, commercial bank, and investors want, if they give money, they want something back for it. And they want something, they don't want to break even. If they give you $100,000, they want $200,000 or $300,000. So what do they need to see? They need friends and family. What do they look for in return? What do they look for in order to invest? Well, they want to see that you have gratitude and that you actually have ambition. And the government and multilateral organizations, what do they want to see before they lend you? They need to see documentation. They need to, because they're spending public money. They need to know everything about you. And it can be quite long. It can be quite complicated if you haven't filled out these forms before. So that can be a challenge sometimes. And a lot of, on the far right, the private sector sources, some friends and family also, and sometimes increasingly government agencies. But definitely in terms of priority, one of the biggest priorities for private sector money is business plans. We can talk more about that later on, but that is basically sort of, laying out how much money you're going to make, how are you going to make it in quite some detail. Now, we could talk a bit about, part of the theme today is about value. And it's a kind of everybody has a different definition. So here's a kind of a hardcore finance guy definition. The classical definition of value applies to anything of value, tangible or intangible. So we're talking about, cell phones, watches, pens, and that's tangible stuff. And intangible stuff, and that's like, creativity, music, intangible assets. The classic, again, sort of a finance person definition of value, and I think this is instructive, and it's what we call the fair market value, is the price any good or any service can be sold for in an open market. So basically, the price of anything is what someone is willing to pay for it. So, that's why, you may not see value in it, but someone else sees value in it. So, which is why someone for a piece of art will say, I wouldn't pay $100 for it. And someone will say I'll pay $100,000 for it. But what is the real value? And the real value is what the majority of people in the market think it is. And of course, and that just goes to say, it is highly subjective. And of course, what is more subjective is things that are intangible versus things that are tangible. But in both situations, things of the same quality and characteristics tend to have the same price or value. So that's where you hear about how can you differentiate yourself. If you differentiate yourself successfully, you can now command greater value or greater price for your service or product. Now, so part of what I was trying to do today was, how do I value anyone? So I went through a little sort of a mental exercise. How do I value anybody? How do I value myself? How do I value an author? How do I value a lawyer, a doctor, any profession? How would I, or any endeavor, how would you look at that person? Now, this is an outsider's view of valuing someone else, right? And on the left-hand side, you'll see some value drivers. Here we go. At the bottom, passion. If you have passion, it must drive value. You can't be really good without passion. Training is also important, and that's this training can be formal or informal. There's on-the-job training, there's training in a school or an institution, and that adds value to yourself from an external person's perspective, right? Remember, this is someone looking at someone else and say, how do I value this person? Another big indicator of value is experience. Has someone taken a risk on you? Have you been in the market? Do you have experience? And the greatest indicator of value is cash flow. Has someone paid you to do this? Or have you been working free forever? And if you're working free forever and no one's been prepared to pay you, it's kind of people who wonder, well, why is this person not earning money from what they do? And that calls into question value. So my little supposition here is that the sum of each of these bars is the total value of anybody. Now, this is not a static model. Right now, we can look at this person here, and to me, this is someone who is could be in a profession that they have obviously tremendous passion for. They have some formal training, but they're very experienced. But why have then their cash flow not been greater? And it can be simply because they haven't hit the right network yet. Maybe they haven't been in the areas where people recognize their passion and their experience. So that is a key part there. So this is not static. You can change this charting with getting different elements into yourself. And of course, the person could actually get more formal training. That bar will increase. Let's take a different example. Now this may, I showed this to a friend of mine, and he said this may depress people. How can this happen? How can you have little passion, some decent training, some pretty good experience, and have massive cash flow? And I could tell you, I know a lot of people like this at the end of their careers. These are people who have lost their passion. So one of my, someone I know well is an attorney, and they had tremendous passion at the beginning of their career. Low cash flow, but they worked their butts off. But then they began to do work that didn't excite them anymore, and they began to do it for the money. And now towards the end of their career, they're going, why am I doing this? I don't want to get up in the morning. So I have a great but so everybody is different. Everybody has to determine what is happiness for them. My advice to this person several years ago was that, you know what? How much is enough? Rediscover your passion. You can't be griping every morning about wanting to go to work. So my advice to this person was, start doing pro bono work. Start doing work that excited you as a younger person. And today that person says they're much happier. Their cash flow is smaller, but their passion has increased. So that's why I'm saying, understanding how these elements of value work for you. Look at yourself. You have to be, now this requires a lot of tough self-assessment, and be realistic with yourself and go, where are my bars long and where are they short? And can I change it? And how do I change it? Now, this is the other thing we want to talk about. We talk about return on investment. And that is what it comes down to. One of the biggest sources of capital will be private investors. And something I'm familiar with. And I want to share with you all some of these elements here that's important, because this is really what drives cash flow. Basic documentation you need when you go to any investor is, how much are you looking for? Be precise. What do you need it for? How much are you going to make? So when you say to an investor, I need $200,000 for this project, you should also tell them, I'm going to make you $250,000. Within what time frame? Within 6 months. How are you going to do it? All of this stuff has to be documented and explained. Also, what facts are you using to base this on? What assumptions are you using? Because you are, as we call it, crystal balling. You are looking into the future. You are trying to say, this is what will happen if you give me your money. And of course, if you've done this many times before and have successful projects, you have credibility. So people will believe you've done this 5 or 10 times. So chances are you have an idea of how this works. What will the investor do then? They're going to take everything you have put forward to them and interrogate it, or I should say dissect it. They're going to dissect all your assumptions, all your figures, all your facts, and question each one. And that's why you have to make sure everything you say is defensible, because that leads to credibility. That leads to an investor feeling safe. Because if you are not confident in what you put forward to the investor, how can they be? Because that's the element of trust. And that's the element of credibility that every investor is looking for. And I say this very often to people, and people are uncertain, but let me reassure you, the one thing we have in this country is no shortage of capital. What we have is a shortage of investable ideas in every sector. And the creative sector is no doubt one of them. But the people with the money are not necessarily connected with the people with the ideas. So forums like today, we hope are avenues of communication where people with the ideas, people with the creative drive and zeal can help put together or understand what do investors need to see. Put it together in a way that investors understand, and investors are more than happy to invest once these criteria can be met. So that brings me to the last slide, solutions. And the solutions are for creatives. First of all, ask this: is your current financing source a good match for you? And in some of my prep for this talk, what I did was, speak to many people. Aegis introduced me to a variety of creatives who I'd never met before, and everyone had a story of a bad conversation with their financing source. And I don't want to say 99.9% of the time, I'll just say 100%. Every single time, the answer was they were talking to the wrong financing provider. If you are a creative in the middle tier, an established creative who doesn't have a lot of collateral yet or a lot of cash flow yet, banks, commercial banks, are not the place for funding for you. They're not. They are not built that way. They're not geared to lend you that way. So any they will take a meeting with you, but I guarantee you it'll end in frustration. So the first thing is, and hopefully, these slides we made available to you, is say, go to the first couple of slides and go, where have I been looking for my funding sources? And if I have a mismatch, well, then I just didn't know. It's not my fault. Then where should I be going? So that's your first question to ask yourself. Have I been matching myself well? The second part is build a support team. No successful entrepreneur, and successful means, growing beyond yourself, can do it on their own. Because at some point, success means that you begin to get busy. And if you begin to get too busy, you begin to let balls drop. So running a business, like many say, is like juggling balls in the air. And the more successful you get more balls to juggle. And if one falls, your business is handicapped. So get a support team, get someone else in there, focus on what you do really well, and retain people, and there are creative ways to retain people. Aegis is one good example of someone you can retain to do, for example, some of your finances, get some of your business plans. And there are other people there, but Aegis is here and they are clearly interested in that value and providing that value to you. And for a small country, we have the most wonderful opportunities to network, yet we don't. And the question I ask people is this: if everyone in your close network are very similar to you, then you just have a liming crew. A network is a bunch of individuals, organizations you can call upon for different needs in your life. And they open different doors for you. And nourishing and cultivating a network is an important thing for any entrepreneur, not just creatives, anybody. So whether that is joining chambers, even reconnecting with your old classmates, because the one thing in our country is that when you go to most of the high schools, it is people from all different backgrounds. And people in my primary school and high school have an array of different professions. And just reconnecting with old events, WhatsApp chats and so on, reopens the network. So I encourage people to do that. So I'm open for question and answers. I hope what I spoke about today was somewhat interesting and illuminating. If we have any questions, please feel free to answer in the chat or turn on your mics and we can chat one-on-one. Haven't seen anything yet. So that's fine. We can, I'm here still for a little while. I'll turn it over to Lorraine O'Connor, who's here. And Lorraine is an example of one of the specialized funds I spoke about. So Lorraine, over to you.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. So yes, I think I will jump straight into the presentation and hopefully we'll have the questions, overall questions at the end. I'm sure it's gonna, create some questions when you all see the presentation. And so let's get started. Anil, that was really interesting. And I liked how at the end the network came up and you mentioned the schools, because that is actually right now, I have an example of that in my own family where my ex-husband went to a French commercial school. My son, our son, is in fashion. He has a fashion brand called the Hideout Clothing, and he wants to start showing in France. And found out that one of his classmates, my ex-husband's classmates, was at this high commercial school, is now the head of Fashion Week in France. Wow. So you see how networks, and especially keeping in touch with those schools, because you never know where they reach in society. So it's super important to use those connections.
100%.
I think Angela told me when I met with her, Mrs. Leloy, she said, if you're not networking, you're not working. And I love that. That stuck with me. I use it a lot because I love to network and I think it's key, it's key. I see the slides behind, so let's get started. So we're talking about how is creative value and determining your worth, right? And I am talking on behalf of C15's Studios, who I'm representing here today, which is new company, just opened the doors officially, and you all will find out a little more as we go through the presentation. So of course, everyone is uniquely gifted, as we know, and or may not know, but obviously we all have special gifts, and it could be in so many different fields, from motivational speakers, nutrition, medical experts, whatever field you're in. And the way we as individuals have been able to grow in so many facets of our lives is because people have pioneered in their respective gifted fields. Actually, the world wouldn't function or advance if we all had the same gifts. Wouldn't it be so boring? And, we talk about this a lot. And in this first part of the presentation, I really want to empower the creatives that are tuned in right now to understand how important you are and we are, because I actually consider myself a creative as well. In other words, every advancement in our world was as a result of people identifying their gifts and putting them into use in order to solve a human problem for the edification of mankind. As a result, a lot of value is placed on these gifts, right? What is value? And Anil defined it just now, but I'm actually going to repeat it again. Value is the regard that something is held to deserve, or the importance, worth, or usefulness of something. Those gifted in the arts may not feel as though their talents are held with the same level of value and respect as other gifts in this world, such as engineers, lawyers, and doctors. How many of us have grown up being told by our parents, you have to be an engineer, or you like to dance, but you need a real job, or you like to paint, but so artists, well, creatives, we've all faced this challenge. Very rare are parents who tell their children, embrace it and, just be an artist. But that is changing. And this may be due to the fact that the impacts of the medicinal, engineering, legal, etc. gifts are more tangibly experienced. You can physically witness a surgeon operating on someone and the benefit of that procedure thereafter. This intrinsic value and appreciation is then translated into financial value. And this is why people don't hesitate to pay for certain things over others. Often what we value comes from what we can physically see and or experience. And then we attach a financial value to it. So we can value things that for us may not have any financial value. For example, a beautiful sunset, Art, however, has a much deeper intangible value, and the impact of which may not often be obviously experienced. And I'm going to share some examples here. It enhances and uplifts one life. What is that special song that gets you through a rough day? I'm sure everyone has one. I know there are certain songs when I'm really feeling down. Actually, coming here this morning to calm myself and to feel prepared, I played, a special song that helps me get in that mood. So I'm sure all of us do. And that's an intangible. Also, art understands and boosts and even soothes one's emotions. That's what I was just referring to, to get you calm or maybe to uplift you. If you're feeling down, you put on a piece of music and you start to dance, or it just, in soca, we bring the joy with our Caribbean music. We know this, Also, art helps people understand themselves and helps us navigate life. Think of love advice or fashion tips we get from movies or books. You often read a book and you're like, oh yeah, that may be a better way to deal with a situation, just from, the example given in the story. While many other careers advance human lives on an external level, like electricity, medicine, construction, art enhances our inner selves and draws out our individuality and uniqueness. And this is why it's so important, As it holds an unseen value and is subjective in nature, art may not be overly and universally valued. However, the truth remains that human beings would never be fully human without art. We will all become empty, emotionless, and soulless. It's a pretty heavy statement, but I'm sure you all can see what we mean by that. It is so important. So even the biggest, most successful business entrepreneur, they will have beautiful paintings. They would have a great music system in their house to play their music. So, art is imperative to our lives and to our well-being. And even though the world may not always acknowledge it, the truth is they need artists like you. We need you. And I like what Anil said too, that when the financiers start coming to look for the creative sector, that's when you're successful. To understand the value of art, people simply need to picture their lives without it. So, for example, imagine a world with no books, no music. I remember my son telling me when he was in his teens, he could not live without music. I remember specifically because teenagers, you know, they're always plugged into these headphones, you know, in their car, going to school every day. It's like, Mommy, I cannot live without music. Imagine a world with no fashion where everyone dresses the same everywhere and every day. I actually had that experience because I went to China in the 80s to study Mandarin, and China was still closed to the foreign world at that time. And I felt one thing that blew me away was everybody was dressed in blue Mao suits, blue or green army suits, but that was the color, uniformity. It was very strange. Of course, now it's not like that at all. Imagine a world with no architecture. Look outside and think of all the buildings being the same. Wouldn't it be so boring? Imagine a world with no movies or TV shows or Netflix during the pandemic. What would we have done? You know, like people were sharing. I mean, that became a topic on social media. Like, you know, did you watch this or did you watch that? So imagine a world without emotions, without romantic movies, without carnival, inspirational books, stylish clothes, worship music, video games, entertainment. All of this is what we give. It's an escape from the mundane, without funny stand-up comedians, without stunning painting, posters, or billboards. This is a world without art. How long will we last in our lives without it? This would be the world without artists like you. And of course, that is not our world, because now we're taking it another level. So some countries and benefactors, and especially we saw this in historical times in the Renaissance, where you had, you know, patrons of the arts who just paid artists to paint or to produce, like, you know, I think of Leonardo da Vinci, you know, who had patrons supporting him through his career. Conversely, in certain places, art is considered a hobby and isn't even given that same level of respect as other professions. Many creative people simply dream of making a living from their artistic dreams. However, in reality, few are able to. They may be forced to do other jobs to support themselves and may or may not have that free time to pursue their creative gifts and their passion. The reason for this is often a lack of value and appreciation for the arts. Let's repeat. Everyone is uniquely gifted. This is really the important message. I want to empower you creatives today. So determining your value. So this is where the big question lies. How do we determine your value? Creatives in our country and the world need to understand that the gifts they were born with are essential. So your value is imperative. And when it comes to your gifts, you need to identify them, value and treasure them, regardless of society's views. You know, think of what society used to be like, you know, 10 years ago and what it is today, you know, and how things have changed. I think NFTs, for example, look at that, you know. Anyway, study them and hone them. And if you want to earn a living from your artistic dreams, you have to inculcate the practices of successful creative entrepreneurs. So this is where we're getting into what is a successful. How do you become a creative entrepreneur and move it from the level of a hobby to actually making it a business and generating income and sustaining your livelihood? How do you harness and elevate your valuable creative gifts to the level you desire? The level to which your work is marketable, in demand, and earning you a sustainable and sound financial living. What makes creatives valuable in the eyes of financiers? I'm sure this is the burning question. It's more than your mere talent. Creative entrepreneurs who are considered by investors and financiers often possess certain qualities and meet specific criteria akin to entrepreneurs from other career sectors. And these qualities are really what sets apart and what makes the financiers take notice. It's self-discipline, so important. Drive. Again, you know, I mentioned my son earlier. You know, every day he has so much discipline, it blows me away. It's so important. Strong organizational skills. So true. You cannot run a business or a successful enterprise without strong organizational skills. Now, if you don't have these, this is where you call on people to help you. Not everyone may be organized, you know, but you need people to help you do this. So the ability to set goals, big overarching goals and smaller manageable ones, and work diligently towards them. Super important to have a plan. and the ability to never, ever, ever give up, even in failure. I listen to a lot of stories. I read a lot of stories about entrepreneurs. Most of them have failed several times, but they continue, they come back and go again, because you mustn't give up on your dream. So what are the criteria now that financiers often look for or value in creative entrepreneurs? Your ability to show that your creative endeavor is or will be financially profitable. As we know, financiers want to make money. They're not mecenas. So back in the days of the Renaissance and all that, they would give money just because they wanted to support the arts. Nowadays, it's a different world we live in. You may have people like that still, but really and truly, if somebody's investing in your business, they want ROI. Remember that word from Anil's presentation? Return on investment. So financiers, actually I have to put on my glasses because I can't see this slide properly. Financiers or investors often examine the past financial performance of business owners. And this is very important because you might be now starting something brand new, but you have past experience and that you have succeeded in. So that, you wouldn't be considered a startup necessarily then, because you've already shown that you can take an idea and make it profitable. To get to that point, particularly if you're a brand new startup, it is wise to look closely at your creative gifts, examine the market, ask yourself who would benefit from your gifts and who would be willing to pay you for your gifts. So very important to identify who is your market. This is one of the first things, and actually one of the tools that we are taught in the initial is identifying your customer. Who is your ideal customer? Sit down, write it out. What's the demographic? Female, male, age? Really drill in. Who is your market? Ask yourself, how can you produce your product or service in a cost-effective way without compromising on quality? For example, so many free channels nowadays to market, on YouTube, all these social media, a lot of it can be done for free. Lastly, if you aren't able to secure the ideal funding you want at this stage in your career, ask yourself, are there other avenues which you can explore to self-fund your business, such as apportioning a percentage of your saving to your business, getting yourself another source of income, secure a higher paying job, or increasing your credit card limit, or searching the internet to find opportunities for grants, SME funding, and all that. Don't give up, don't give up. Investors also value entrepreneurs who have an overall good track record with money. In other words, before an investor hands money over to you, they will need proof that you've been given loans in the past, or that you have a good track record of repaying them in a timely manner. Or you just show, even if you've never had loans in the past, and I'm talking about even a car loan, you want to show that you can manage repayment and, stick with it. The additional criteria investors value in creative entrepreneurs: a track record that you know your creative field, you understand your market, and that you have experience in successfully delivering your creative product or service to them. So we are recapping here a little bit. And this is a quote: investors don't want entrepreneurs to make mistakes on their dime. Investors look for experienced entrepreneurs and management teams with a track record of high performance and leadership in the company's industry and prior ventures. Most investors will research your business experience and your background in the industry. Passion and commitment should be evident to inspire confidence in investors and stakeholders. And that is very important, about social media as well. People will research you. So if you have unhappy things on social media, they will pop up and they will come back to haunt you. So be mindful of that when you're posting and, doing your social media. So some of the additional criteria that we look at, of course, solid and strategic business model, which is detailed in your business plan. In other words, you need to demonstrate to investors through your business plan that your creative business will be attractive to your clearly defined market, who will pay you dollars for your product and service, and that you will turn a profit and investors will obtain a solid return on their investment. So this is encapsulating right here what the investor will look for. And if you don't know how to do the business plan, there are companies, there are Aegis and others who are there to do this for you. Identifying and understanding, thoroughly understanding your market, again, I spoke about it, is another key criteria which investors will value in you. You should prove that your market is one which is and will be stable and sustainable and which has solid growth capacity, thereby capable of bringing you the financial profits worthy of your time, energy, and efforts, as well as the ROI for your investors. Lastly, investors value creative entrepreneurs who bring something special and unique to the table. What makes your creative product or service offering different? What distinguishes you from others? And this can range, from a product or service being unique. And really, I want you to think about that when you're pitching, when you're preparing your presentation. What makes you different? We are not reinventing the wheel. You might have an idea of a food product. There are plenty of food products, but what will make your food product different? And we need, that is so important when you pitch it. So about us, about C15 Studios. So we supply cash flow solutions and provide investment opportunities to creative entrepreneurs in the Caribbean. So we are intrinsically a Caribbean company. We want to represent the Caribbean, be it in the Caribbean, but of course in the diaspora, so important. We serve 15 sectors, going from animation all the way to wellness, through, beauty, film. We have a website, you can go and check it out, c15studios.com. And our core goals is to enhance, just switch me there to the other side, to enhance the creative sector for sustainability and profitability, to link the Caribbean creative sector with valuable investors and investments, and to become the premier Caribbean platform for financing creative professionals. So those are our core goals, and we just started. Literally, we are now open for business. So, we're going to build this over time. So if you want to contact us, here we are. And yes, thank you for listening. And I see we have some questions, Anil, popping up. So let's move over to that. Sounds good.
That was excellent, Lorraine. I'm happy in the end we all kind of came back to return on investment.
Right, exactly.
In the end, that's what finance says. In the end, it comes down to. And I think that was I think you saw the difference between a creative person's presentation. I was wonderful and a little more antiseptic one like mine. So maybe can we go back to some of the questions you have in the chat, please? Maybe I think we have 3. Okay.
Thank you.
So one is some.
Thank you, Anil and Lorraine, for the informative contribution. I will read out some of the questions that came through. Gwyneth is asking, how often must passion, training, experience, and cash flow be assessed?
Thanks for the question, Gwyneth. I think those are sort of touch points. Not every day. I would say, it's sort of like a touch point for yourself or for your business, and make an assessment. I think the big thing really is be really honest. And in a way, ask someone you trust also, when you kind of have an idea of it, to also assess it with you and go, do you think my passion is high? Do you think, do you think my technical experience is high? And to me, one way to do it is also when you feel like you are a little bit stuck. If you feel that there's something missing, if all your bars are full, chances are you'll be like, oh, this is great. But if you feel like someone I knew whose passion was low, look at it and go, well, if my passion is low, my cash flow is high, maybe I can afford to reinvest in my passion. And maybe if you have high passion, a lot of experience, but my cash flow is low, you make that assessment and you go, why is it? And ask yourself the hard question. Why am I not getting the cash flow, the reward for my endeavors? And maybe it is because of we don't have the most formal business plan. Maybe I don't have a network. So to answer your question, Gwyneth, I think it is really done not on an irregular basis, but whenever you feel that your business can be doing better, I think it's a useful touch point to go back to.
Thank you, Anil. Thank you, Gwyneth, for that question. Joanna is asking, what financial institutions should creatives go to for funding or support?
I think,
Anil, well,
I think it depends. And I think, so again, Joanna, thanks for the question. And the reason why it depends is and again, I think we have our slides available. I would say it depends what type of creative are you. If you are a very established creative, if you are highly successful, you could really find funding anywhere. If you are just starting up, if you are still in school or still haven't gone and done a lot of work in the sector yet, then you're looking for scholarships. You're looking to go for institutions. You're looking for government grants and so on. If you are in the sector and you are having trouble getting funding, I think that's where you now should have networks. And to me, that is where people like C15 comes in. People like Aegis comes in to help build your story better, your business plan better, because maybe that's why, because then they can take it to investors. So it sort of depends where you are. But like I said, the most important thing is matching where you are as a creative to the right financing source. So if you want to give us a little more description in the chat about where you are as a creative, that would be helpful as well. I can be more specific. I think Andre has a question as well.
We have a couple more questions.
Can we go up to Andre?
Yes, Andre is asking this question to both you and Lorraine. Hi, my question is to both. When speaking of value, what is the best approach for a creative company who just entered the market when seeking out potential customers? To give more context, the company has content both paid and unpaid. The company has observed that potential customers are intrigued by the content. However, most of the customers hesitate to pay what is quoted. So basically how to get that value now that you've identified. Yes.
Yes, I would give a suggestion. So create a lead magnet, create something that's going to attract the customers. You know, we always have to give away to get. So find a way that you can give something, like if you purchase so-and-so, you get a discount. Or if you do something, you get a free. The next time you come on, you get it free. Think of ways to entice the customer. That's what a lead magnet is. So basically, you want to entice them so that they come. Yes, people may be hesitant because you're a new company. They don't know the product. They're not sure. But nobody refuses free. So start there, and then you'll see you'll probably get more traction. That would be my advice.
I think that's excellent advice. I think I could echo. I think the good thing you're saying, Andre, is that how your free content has traction. So what you're talking about now is getting customer conversion. You have good content. How do you get them to actually now pay for it? And I think the lead magnet's a good idea. One way of doing it can be also there are a lot of websites now who, for their actual written content, so they're either bloggers or write articles on particular content. And what they do is they have some free content, and some of the more interesting content is you can read like the first 2 paragraphs. And if you want to read more, you pay a certain transaction fee, or you can get a subscription. So there are many different ways of doing it, but I think that's always going to be a challenge. I think as Lorraine says, a new company, people take the risk of paying, but I think the idea is also to look at what are other people in your sector doing, because a lot of these things are based upon what is accepted and what is normal. So if you follow a model that is similar how other companies may have done it, it would become comfortable. They would have been used to that transitioning from free content to paid content.
Thank you, Anil and Lorraine. Jason has a comment. C15, very exciting prospect for the creative industry. Very exciting. Keisha.
Thank you, Jason.
Keisha is saying, hi, good morning. Amazing presentations from you both. Thank you so much. As an extreme beginner, can you suggest areas to network for creative mentors?
Yes. actually, I would suggest starting at Creative TT, because there's the music TT. I don't know what field you're in, Keisha, you could let us know maybe, but they have music, film, and fashion, and they organize programs yearly in spotlighting in the different industries. So, you know, check it out. They also have a database online. They all have websites. So I would suggest that, yeah, you can start there.
Thank you, Lorraine. Jason is also asking, along from C15, are there any other specialized funds or other forums that bring together creative industry practitioners and investors, financiers that exist in the region?
Good question, Jason. So I think C15 is actually fairly unique. On Friday, I'm hosting a panel with Lorraine at the summit. I think it's at 3 o'clock. That actually has several industry specialists. Some are investors, and one is actually the Caribbean Development Bank. The Caribbean Development Bank has a fund, I think it's called the CIIF Fund, the Caribbean Industries and Innovation Fund. And they have a fund set up for two things. One for individual creative entrepreneurs, and one to fund the creative infrastructure within the Caribbean itself. So they have a very interesting endeavor there as well. I think many of the government institutions have programs as well, but I think as far as my limited experience with the funds, there's C15 and the CDB. And I think if you come on Friday, Jason, maybe they can speak more to it, because the panel we have on Friday is going to have a lot broader cross-section as well.
Yeah, I also think that, but you mentioned that the CEDA is because there's a Caribbean Export Development Agency out of Barbados. Yeah. I'm sure Jason may be aware, and some of the more established would be aware that they also do small grant funding. And I do think that our competition, we may have some competition in Jamaica, but basically C15 is pretty unique. And but what is interesting also that I want to add is, because I've been doing a lot of research, obviously, in funding creative sectors, and there are actually companies that exist where you can, as an investor, invest in the creative sector. So there's a company called Yield online, and you can become an investor there, and they invest in creative projects for you. So it's just showing how big this scope is, and how, you know, this is really going to take off. And you know, we hope C15 will be very successful and set an example for others to follow. And I see Janine Charles Foray is giving some tips also there. Yeah. So maybe you could read them.
Janine is sharing with Keisha, who asked about the mentorship. First, Keisha said that she's starting in the jewelry craft. And Janine is sharing that you can also network for mentors with existing arts associations or creative community groups on your island.
Yeah, can I jump in and say also a suggestion would be to go to somewhere like the markets, like Upmarket, for example. You have a lot of jewelry makers there, and talk to them, and you know, and everybody's very friendly, very open, and just, you know, be bold. One thing, to be successful, you have to be bold in life. You can't be timid. You have to go and bite the bullet and go out there.
I think that's actually an excellent point, because I think many people think that, I mean, it would be consigned to a hobby if you create fantastic art and fantastic writing, but no one ever sees it.
Thank you.
You have to be your own advocate. There's an interesting story. This is one anecdote I have of my aunt, who's an author. Her name is Lakshmi Prasad, and I think she's written 6 or 7 books now, very successful now. And she lives in England now, and she's written most of her life and never shared it with anybody. My cousins found her manuscripts and books of stuff she wrote about her childhood in Trinidad and stuff like that, and unbeknownst to her, got it published, or got people to look at it, and they wanted to do a book deal with her, and she's developed into a very successful author. And now that is a lucky story. Because most of the time, people are not going to drag you out of the shadows. No. But the idea is even people like my aunt who didn't think her work was worth showing, it shows that many people actually undervalue their own work.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Yeah. Undervalue themselves. And that's why it was so important in my presentation. I really wanted to stress how, even if you think you're not, not gifted or you don't have a talent, we all have talents. Even, long ago, I used to think my only talent was to be organized. Well, I've grown past that, but it was a big talent growing up to be organized. The other day I had dinner at a friend's house and I was like, why aren't you selling all this? That's the food. You're an amazing cook, So yeah, we have so many gifts, but as Anil is saying, often we want to leave them sitting in the shelves at home and not show them. So very important to be bold and get out there and market yourself. Sometimes it's hard because creatives tend to be introverts,
Sometimes.
So again, that's where team,
Yeah.
Find a manager or find a friend and share with your family. Like that is huge. Like I love that Anil pointed that out because it's really huge. They can be a great sounding board. You need to have sounding boards. You don't just sit down and do your thing and then just put it out. Share it first with your family, your friends, then your different circles, and then you get to the wider circle, which is the general public,
Yeah. I think that's a fair point.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Janine also shared, if you're in Trinidad, Craft and Jewelry Associations are TTCEN, TTCAPA, and the Leather Workers Association of Trinidad and Tobago. Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, everyone, for your questions. And thank you again, both Lorraine
Before you go, if I may, I want to, in particular to Jason's question, and I do think that session is really going to be good. So I just went into my phone to just look at a WhatsApp here. But on that session, we have Sean Finn. If I could just read his short bio. Is based in Silicon Valley, where he's a principal at Global Capital Markets, a premium middle market investment bank with a global presence, with expertise in mergers and acquisition, capital market, financial restructuring, and secondaries. Before he joined in Global Capital Markets, Sean was head of incubation in Silicon Valley for a global incubator accelerator with focus on artificial intelligence and blockchain. And prior to that, he was the investment director for Bayes Angel, the second oldest angel group in Silicon Valley. He is really fantastic. I have met him. I have been to Silicon Valley. I remember coming straight from the airport, going to his place. He was having a cocktail party. So I just said, Sean, should I change my clothes? He says, no. I said, I'm straight from the airport. I'm just in jeans and a top. So that's perfect. That's perfect. In Silicon Valley, nobody really dresses up. But what was interesting, it was all these young people, as well, of course, older people. And what his job was, he connects entrepreneurs, with people who have money. So a lot of them in there were all rich, but you wouldn't think so. I mean, just afterwards chatting and hearing their respective stories. And he was able to hook up somebody who's now coming into whatever it is they're doing. He was able to hook them up, and therefore they now blossomed into their own. So it was so interesting what this guy has been able to do. So I think if whoever is joining that session, take advantage of Sean. He has these serious connections, and he actually does. He holds, well, people you all will understand, a lot of license, but he is the host of the award-winning podcast, the Silicon Valley Podcast. Right? So
I had a good chance, Angela, to speak with Sean. And so Sean and I have some friends in common. And what we talked about was that how, whether you're investing in tech, and the good thing about Silicon Valley is it's tech heavy, but investors in tech, investors in oil and gas, investors in creatives, all look for the same thing. They look for returns. And it's how you do it. And Sean's an excellent connector. And what we're trying to get in Trinidad is to do several things here. Get a good cluster of connectors, get a good cluster of investable creative projects, and get another cluster of investors. And I think on the panel on Friday, we're going to have hopefully the first such cluster, because we have investors like Joe Perez, we have middle people like myself, like
I see Curtis. Thank you, Curtis Bechan, for that vote of confidence and for supporting my work over the years. Thank you so much.
and Abigail giving us some shout out. Abigail, well done. You're welcome. I mean, and I mean, I think the only reason we're doing it is because both of us have some interest or stake in the sector as well. And so, I think the idea is once one sector does well, we all do well, and I think we all have a soft spot in our hearts for it.
Definitely. And to add to that, because I see you say you guys are passionate about what we do, and it shows. Yes, we are very passionate about what we do. And, I was so excited to hear that Aegis was putting this forum on because, of course, we are now launching C15. It ties in so well. Like this is a strategic partnership happening right here. And we really are excited to help build the creative economy in the Caribbean. Like, it's long overdue, as, Anil pointed out when he said the three levels from the beginning, the aspirational to the established. The established is very small compared to the aspirational and the middle. And, and we really want to change those levels and to become the aspirational, to really grow and show our impact to the world, because I really believe deeply that the Caribbean has huge amounts to contribute to the world, not just creatively, but our spirit, our intrinsic joy and how we live life. I think we have a lot to share.
I think for that we're actually more contagious than COVID.
Yeah, it should be.
Okay, just a few more comments with everyone who is excited for Friday.
Good.
So
we look forward to seeing everybody.
Yeah,
yeah,
we do. And of course, you can, I'm sure, so this is I don't know, the PowerPoints are going to be shared, but there's contact information if anybody wants to reach out. And as I said, you can check our website, you can check Aegis website and
FIRE as well.
And FIRE as well,
and
yeah.
FIRE's website, yeah. Okay, great. Thank you again, Lorraine and Anil, for this exhilarating conversation. And thank you to the audience for your participation and questions. The communication helps to share the information between yourselves as well as creators who are living in the industry. So to wrap up, be reminded that we have our upcoming business summit on the 26th of November. That is this Friday. Bernice is sharing the information in the chat, but you can register at www.aegistt.com/creative-summit. Again, that is www.aegistt.com creative/summit. The cost of this most informative and collaborative and the most ingenious summit for creatives is 180 TT dollars, just about US $28. Yeah, of course, we must thank our amazing audience for engaging with us. We hope to see you again at our upcoming workshop series and business summit for the Caribbean creators and small businesses. Thank you, and remember your 3 W's. Wash your hands, wear a mask, and watch your distance. Thank you, everybody.